Hi, this is Patricia Stepler with your Inside Power. And today I hope you're ready to rock and roll because we are going to be going very fast here today. But I want to share with you some of the answers. I get so tired of dealing with people who have gone to others and they've had little integrity or little honesty or whatever you want to call it, and they don't really get the answers. So I want to give you some of the answers today. So let's find them. So the inside power, always looking for what's inside of you that can absolutely shift your world if you just touch into it. So my question for you today was, are you willing and able to change? And if change means that you get to create the reality that you want, then are you willing and able to make those shifts? Because it's all about making shifts in your thinking. That's all you have to do. Shift your thinking and you change your life. So we need to start looking for the creative outcome that we want so we know what to focus on. I want to give you a quote here. This is by Norman Vincent Peale, and it says, change your thoughts and you change your world. That's what I'm talking about. Changing your thinking so that you change your world and you create the life that you truly want. Now, sometimes that means becoming more aware of the possibilities and just thinking about what is possible for your life and then finding those ways to make those shifts. Here's another quote. I don't know who did it, or who gave this quote, but it says, thoughts become words, words become actions, actions become habits, and habits become character, character becomes destiny. You see, that's what it starts with, a thought. Everything starts with a thought. So you have a thought, and then you start to say those thoughts. So you create those words. Those words drive you into actions. Actually, there's a whole thought process about how you get that into your subconscious mind, which I've talked about in other sessions, but it changes your actions. But when you change your actions, actions, reactions, you learn that in science class. When you change your actions, you're going to change your results. And those actions that you do become habits. You see, it's the difference between successful and unsuccessful people is the habits they create. So the actions that you utilize become habits. The habits develop who you are. It becomes your character. And then the character becomes your destiny. What your results are, what your final outcome is. So, you change your perspective, you change your thought pattern, you change the way you're doing everything, and everything else is going to change for you. And everything in your life is going to be impacted by those thoughts. Your finances, your health, your spiritual life, your relationships, your job, everything's going to be affected by those thought changes that you make. Buddha said, what we think, we become. And because Emerson said, what you think about all day long, is who you become. So Ralph Waldo Emerson said, what lies behind us and what lies before us carry tiny matters compared to what lies within us. It's what's inside of us. We can't change the past. We can't necessarily control the future, but we can change our thoughts and change our thinking, which will impact the future. So my question is, do you realize how important it is to exercise your body every day? I think we all realize that. If we just sit around and don't use our muscles, they atrophy. And then we can't move, right? Or it's painful to move. So we know the importance of exercising our body. About 8 years ago, I guess, I had surgery on my leg, my left leg, and I tore my Achilles tendon, and I had to wear a cast. I couldn't put any weight on that foot for 8 weeks. And then after that, it was, just very slow. But I remember when I first took the cast off my leg and I looked at it, and it was so tiny. The muscle strength was all gone. And what was really bizarre is that, for 8 weeks, I did not walk. I had a little scooter and I scooted, with my right leg, taking care of all the problems my left leg was having, and just resting my left leg. And the first time I took a step, I had to think what to do. Isn't that bizarre? We just walk normally because we've done it since we were little infants, probably to think about it somewhat when we were infants, but I had to actually think about how to move my legs because I hadn't walked in 8 weeks. And then I had to rebuild that muscle, which took some time to get it rebuilt. And even today, I notice even after all this time, they're not quite the same. You just had 8 weeks. So we know it's important to exercise our body, which is where I was getting to. But do we realize that it's just important to exercise our mind? And we have to do things to exercise our mind every day. We have to do things that are going to impact us so that we change our life. It's reading books. It's taking even just that quote, taking any other quote, what we think about, we become, taking that and thinking about it. And how's that impacting us? And, we have to do something different if we're going to get a different result. So I want you to think about this. Let's think about a garden. In a garden, you plant a seed. Let's say you plant a petunia seed. So you're going to get petunias. You're not going to get cucumbers. You're going to get petunias. So you've planted those petunias, but then all of a sudden you see these other things coming up. These things called weeds. And if we let those weeds continue to grow, they will overcome the petunias and they will stifle them out. And the petunias will, maybe some of them will grow, but they aren't going to be this robust petunias area that you planted. That's what happens in your mind. You see, thoughts are the seeds. And if you plant petunia seeds, which are beautiful, then they're going to grow. But if you don't plant petunia seeds, the weeds will grow and they will take over your mind. And that's what you'll get, the negative thing. And you've seen people, I know you have, you've seen people that are just so negative that you don't even want to be around them. If you're a positive person. Now, if you're a negative person, maybe you do like to be around them because, birds of a feather flock together, but if you're a fairly positive person, you just can't stand to be around those people that are so negative all the time. So you have to think of that. Now, what do you have to do when you, not only do you have to take care of the weeds, but what else do you have to do to a garden? You have to fertilize it, and you have to water it. You have to make sure it's getting sunlight. So let's relate that to your thinking. So you have to fertilize it. That's reading things, that's studying materials. You have to do that to in your mind so that you continue to grow and learn more and understand. I've been studying, since I came upon my mentor and friend Bob Proctor, about 5, 6, 7 years ago. And I just had to learn so much information from him, things I did not understand. And it was like, I could not get enough of it. I kept nurturing my mind to learn more. I did programs with him. And I read books and I studied materials, and then I found other things that were related. I just had to learn and absorb it all. That was fertilizing the garden in my mind. And then you have to water it. You have to keep watering and nourishing it. And, the water, maybe that's the people that maybe you're associating with. And that's what you're doing. But you have to do all those things if you're going to change your life. You can't just say, okay, we'll have sunlight for one day and then your plants are going to grow. That's not going to work. They need sunlight every day, or at least multiple times during the week. And they need water. You can't just water a, plant a seed, water it once and think it's going to grow. You have to continue to nourish it. Well, that's what you have to do with your mind. You must continue to nourish your mind, just like you continue to nourish your body by exercise and by feeding, eating good food. But so often we don't realize that we have to nourish our minds, and so we let it just go to whatever the outside world is telling us, instead of going inside of us. And we allow others to just throw us around and give us their ideas, and we accept them. Yes, because that's the way we did it when we were a child. We didn't have the filters, but now if you're an adult, you are old enough to have those filters and be able to decide what it is that you want and start to think for yourself instead of allowing others to think for you and tell you what to do. Wow, so I got a little off tangent here. So anyway, we must compare a garden to like the garden in our mind. Now there is a book, and it was called Change or Die. And in that book, the author, Alan Drusman, said that when people were told that they had to change their habits or it was going to kill them, maybe they had a heart issue, and they had to change their habits, 90% of them were not able to do that. 90%. Why weren't they able to do it? Well, they weren't able to do it because they didn't understand how to do it. If you tell somebody, don't think of a pink elephant, what do? Think of a pink elephant. People don't understand how to shift their thinking by just saying, don't do this, don't do that, don't do that. Well, what do I do? How do I make those changes? How do I shift my mindset? How do I develop new habits? Why does it take so long? Why are habits so difficult to change? Well, when you can understand what's causing that habit and how it got there, then you can start learning how to shift that. And so that's really important. So it's not that people are not able to, it's that they don't know how. The mind affects everything that we do. Our thinking impacts everything. It impacts how we feel and how we act. And so we also have to realize that the way we think, feel, and act impact our mind. So it's a two-way street. It's not a one-way street. It's a two-way street. So our mind changes us, but we can change our mind. And when you know how to change your mind, which is what you have to do if you're in a situation like in a book, Change or Die, you have to know how to change your mind. Because it's not easy, but it can be done. If it was super easy, 90% of those people would be able to instead of unable. So the question then becomes how? Well, we have to become who we want to be. And more than that, we must decide the role that we're choosing. So we have to become who we want to be and decide the role we're choosing. So I was asked to do a job that I hadn't planned on. It was nothing I sought out. And this is what happened. So today I read the bio of the person who I'm replacing in this job. And I thought, oh my gosh, like they are so much more qualified than I am. They had this degree and that degree and done this and done that. I thought, oh my gosh. And then I realized it's all up here. So when you're thinking, that doesn't mean I'm not qualified. It means that they have different experiences. But you see, that's what our mind does. For the brief second, I thought, oh my gosh, I'm not qualified to do this. And then I thought, quit being silly. You are more than qualified to do it. You just have a different path of getting there. It doesn't make me less qualified or them more qualified or me more qualified than they are. It just means we have different experiences. And we have to realize that people have different experiences. One thing we all want is making sure we have enough money so we don't live in poverty. Health, we want relationships. The problem is we want them now. You know, if your health isn't good, it didn't happen overnight. It's generally something that you maybe have done. Like these people have heart problems. Unless they were born with a congenital heart problem, that didn't happen overnight. It's gone on for a while. And we can't expect things to change overnight. If you have a bad relationship, you can't expect it to improve overnight. It's not going to happen. If you have zero in your bank account, you can't expect to have $1 million tomorrow. It doesn't happen immediately. And the other thing we have to realize is that every goal we have has a gestation period. There is a time. There's a time for everything. And there's a gestation period for every goal that you have. The other day I was talking to somebody and they were telling me how they'd spent 15 years wanting to accomplish this and they're still nowhere. And that's a long time. But they also said this. This person also said, I can feel inside of me things are changing. Well, that's the first place you need to feel something changing is inside of you. Now, 15 years is a long time. However, there is a gestation period for everything. With the birth of animals, depending on the animal, it could be weeks for birth up to, I don't know, year and a half, 2 years, whatever an elephant might be, So there's different lengths of time for a child to be born or for an animal to be born. So there are also different times for your dream to turn into reality. And of course, the bigger the dream, the longer it may take. If it's, like a really lofty dream, it may take years to develop. So what happens in between? Well, I want you to think of that going back to those plants. You see, you plant that seed. Let's think of a bamboo. I heard this story that a bamboo, you plant bamboo in the ground, and I think it's 7 years before it starts to sprout. So all that time you have to nourish it, you have to water it, you have to make sure that it's still okay, even though you can't see anything. It seems like it's not growing at all. And then all of a sudden in a year, it just grows. If you can't imagine that, think of any other plant. You plant a seed in the ground and you water it and you nurture it, put it in the sunlight, and say it's maybe a lima bean. You put that lima bean seed in the ground, and for days, nothing seems to be happening. Maybe a week, maybe a little more than a week. And you think nothing's going to grow. And then all of a sudden, you see this little green thing. And pretty soon the stem comes up and starts to open up and starts to grow and grow and grow and grow. And that's the way your dream is. But you see what happened to that seed? It had to become something different. That seed sitting on a table is going to do nothing. It's going to remain the way it is. You not reading anything, not shifting anything in your thinking, you are not going to change. You're not going to become anybody different. But once you planted it in the soil and started watering it and putting it in the sunlight and making sure it's fertilized, all of a sudden that lima bean was attracting everything it needed to grow. And that's what you're doing. Like when you are reading things and listening and changing your thinking, that's what you're doing to yourself. You are simply having that time period where it seems like nothing's happening, but on the inside, it is. Just like under the soil, there's roots growing. The plant's getting ready to sprout. And it's becoming something different. It's no longer the seed. It's becoming a plant. Well, that's what you have to do. You have to go from being a seed to a plant. And you have to become that person first. Because before you see the results, you have to be somebody new. And that's the beauty of it. You have to have changes inside of you first before that result's ever going to come. And as long as you stay where you are, you're not going to get that different result. You see, the reason for other experiences in your life, and just like this experience that where I was talking about following this other person in this position, is it frightening? Yes. It's a little scary, but it's exciting at the same time. And is there the opportunity for growth there? Absolutely. I wouldn't be doing it otherwise. And, the first thought was, I don't need one more thing to do. But you see, it's going to help me to grow in another way and to meet other people and to have different opportunities and different experiences. So it's an opportunity for growth. And it was an opportunity for growth that I didn't want to turn down. So that's what I want you to think about. Changing habits takes time. I did a video, social media post one day talking about, for years, when I go for a walk, I would walk out of my driveway and turn left. I always would turn left. And one day I thought, why do I always turn left? I don't know, because most of my neighbors would have gone right. I thought, why do I go left? Well, it's just something I started to do. And so one day, we went right. My husband and I were walking and we went right. And it was so funny because it felt wrong. It just felt like we were going the wrong direction. And we were seeing houses, instead of seeing the house from the front, we would see houses from the back, and things like that. It felt completely wrong. But the advantage of it is we enjoyed the walk better because of the way you were going uphill and downhill, which just, you were starting on downhill and then you went uphill and then you came downhill. So it was like a cooling time. It just seemed a whole lot better. And then there was another hill that was, really got your heart moving. So it was a better path going when we went to our right instead of going to our left. So the next day we came out of the driveway, and what did we do? We went to the left because it was a habit. And as we're starting to walk, we're like, why do we go this way? After we talked about how much better the going to the right was. It was a habit. And it took a while for us to get into the habit of coming out of the driveway and turning right. Now that's become a habit. But I'll tell you what, if we ever came out of the driveway and went to the left, it would seem very normal now because we've done it. Bob Proctor used to have people take something, a statement, and write it with the opposite hand that they usually write with. So if they're right-handed, he'd say, write this with your left hand. If you're left-hand, write with your right hand. And it was difficult because you had to think about it. Just like when I got out of that cast after having been in it for 8 weeks, I had to think about how to walk. See, things become a habit. And so we have to retrain our thinking. And that's what you're going to have to do to accomplish your goal. You have to retrain your thinking. And I know we're running way out of time here. So I want to give you the points that it will help you. to retrain your thinking. First of all, affirmations, but you have to say it like you believe it. I've had people say, write this 100 times. No, to me, that is just a painless activity. And it doesn't do anything but tell me how much, arthritis I might have in my fingers on that particular day that it's bothering me. That's not good for me because I'm not thinking about what I'm writing. I'm thinking about the pain my hand's in, right? So it could be listening to an affirmation. I have affirmations on my phone that I listen to. And, it can be just reiterating it. I was telling somebody the other day about a very difficult time I had in my life. And the statement I said to myself every single day was, people of integrity expect to be believed. And when they're not, they let time prove them right. I don't know who wrote that statement and who said that first, but I tell you that I embedded that in my head. And I said it every single day as I was dealing with that difficult situation. And, sometimes it's that affirmation that can keep you going. That one kept me going. Maybe it's a book. I was just on a call before I came on this show and told about this book I've got to order, because it sounded so fascinating, because it's going to expand my learning. It's going to help me grow and to improve my business. Journaling. When you journal and you're visualizing what it is you're doing and you see yourself. And journaling, not only, sometimes you just get into this world where you're just lost. And then you go back and you read it and you're like, I didn't write that. Those ideas didn't come from me. No, they're coming from the ether. So you need to make sure you go back and read them, because those ideas are coming to you, and act on the ones that you need to act on. And sometimes it's just a matter of, during the day, that continued thinking of what it is that you want. And then challenging why you're thinking a thought in a certain way. Like I had to challenge myself this morning. When I read the bio of the other person, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not qualified for this. And I had to, go back and challenge my mind as to where that thought was coming from. And develop a routine. And part of your routine should include gratitude. Man, I know that was a lot, and I knew it was going to be a full session today. And I want you to really think about those things and then reach out to me and let's have a chat. I put my link in there for let's chat, and let's just have a quick conversation as to how these ideas and maybe some others as we would talk, I can come up with for you to help you to move to the place, into the position, to the thinking that you really want, so that you really can create the life that you choose to create, instead of the life that when you don't think and don't change, you end up with. It's Patricia Stepler with your Inside Power. Make it a great day and think about ways that you can change and change your life.